Thank you everybody for coming. So we are continuing with our series of seminars that we started some weeks ago, back January, and we will start with today talking about the barcoding with GGCE, and Dr. Matija and Dr. Juan, they will present some of the useful things that can be done in this matter. Matija, Juan, please go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. So today we'll just focus on one important aspect of gene banking, and that's sample tracking and making sure that you're able to read those properly. So barcoding with GGC is a key thing to go through. The way we've set this up is I'll do a bit of an introduction to go through the topic. And then from there, Juan Carlos is going to demonstrate live some of those things we discussed. The main thing basically being printing labels from GGC for use in GeneBank operations. So with that, all right. Last session we had was about accessions and inventories or seed lots or whatever you want to call them. And I hope remember that one accession has multiple samples. And if you want to link these samples to data properly, then, you need to have each sample uniquely identified. That's the inventory in GGC. And properly labeling them helps you and the technicians properly identify which sample they're on. So every single one of these things has to be uniquely identifiable. So you should have a database where you can pull up the information about a specific jar, tube, whatever it is, by scanning the barcode. I think most of you are familiar with that. And what you barcode really depends. I mean, in vitro, you'll barcode the different tubes. In seeds, you either do the aluminum bags or you barcode the jars or whatever it is you have. In the field, you would probably use a different type of a label so that it's basically attached to either to the plant directly or to something on the plot itself. Ideally, the labels would be printed when and where they are needed, right? So it's not that you sort of generate 1,000 labels and then give them to a technician and they need to figure out where they should go. But it's basically as you are doing your gene bank operation, whatever that process is, at some step you're gonna need labels. That's when you click print and they come out of the printer and you apply them, because in that moment you have all the context you need for proper labeling. You most likely want to include something computer readable on the label itself. So that's either a QR code, data matrix, or whatever other barcode style that fits. QR and data matrix are most commonly used today. And you should just make sure that there's enough space on your label to make that easily readable with the scanner. Labels also need to provide just enough information for humans. The key objective obviously being that once you scan the code, all the other information is actually pulled from your system and displayed, and then you know everything about that piece of material that you're looking at. And also try avoid printing any data that's subject to change. So you don't want to print, perhaps you don't want to print location in storage if that thing is subject to change. If it's quite stable, you can print it, but keep in mind that if you print things that are changeable, like, I don't know, last viability result, once you have a new viability result, you'd have to print a new label for that to make sense. So it's better to pull that information out of the system instead of sticking it or printing it on a label, especially if it's a long-term label. All right, so in GGC, obviously, accessions don't have any labels. Inventories, they are uniquely identifiable, and each packet and every sample should have a label on it. So basically, anything that moves together should have a sticker on it, should have a label, and be barcoded. We have barcoding in seed viability testing, where each replicate gets a unique code, so that when you are recording observations, you just scan the code and key in the observations and move on, so you don't have to look things up or track things or copy things by hand. And when it comes to distribution, we have that's where distribution labels will be printed. They usually have a different layout to what you use for storage or in conservation or in the field. And commonly, what you could or would encode in the QR code itself, for example, would be a DOI of the accession, so that when the user receives that packet after it's being shipped and whatever, if they scan that QR code, they get to all the information that's available about that accession on a public system like the GLIS DOI, Genesis, and so forth. In GGC, multiple layouts are possible. When you print, you basically select which layout you would like to use. So there's no limitation on how many layouts you have. It really depends on your use case and your scenarios. All right, so with that, just talking about how these things, how this happens in GGC, we have this documented on the website. It makes sense to go there and read that section about barcoding. It does provide some useful hints. But basically, the concept is that you design a label. Basically, anybody can design what a label should look like in terms of what it displays and how it's organized and what it looks like. Then it has to be registered with GGC. That's the task for your GGC administrator, which is usually one person in the Genebank. And once it's registered, that template is available for anybody to use immediately. There's no need to do anything else or install things or tell people to configure stuff. Just the new option appears in the print menu. So I'll go now through a few of these these 3 steps quickly. So in designing labels, our recommendation at this moment still is to use Zebra Designer. It's a what you see is what you get type of software. You basically you specify the dimensions of your labels, you put elements on it, and once you have that, once it looks pretty enough and you've done some test prints, your design is ready. So this software is completely free, even though somewhere there it will say something about professional edition and stuff like that. None of that is required. The software is free to use. There's no fees or anything associated. I've included the link just for reference. So once that template is ready, there's a few steps that need to happen that are done by the administrator. And that part is a bit too big for this, but basically the administrator does a few things and puts and registers the things in GGC. I will not go through that here. It's not applicable for the just for the labeling itself. And it's well documented on the website, so it will be skipped here. So the third step was obviously printing the labels with GGC. So and that's Juan Carlos will demonstrate, but most commonly a dialog will show up like this, where you pick your label template of one of the available ones, right? You specify the number of copies of each label that you want to have. The initial limit here was 10 copies per maximum, but I think we've increased that to, I don't know, a huge number. Because there were use cases where they wanted to print 100 or so copies of the same label for different reasons. And after that, you click submit or print or whatever, and ideally, things will be printed. But there's a step before that, because GGC is a web application. It doesn't really have all the access to the printers installed on your system, or if you're on a tablet or a mobile phone, there's no such thing on those platforms. So this label printer app is actually a companion piece of software that you install on your computer, and that's where you configure your printers that you want to use, and also manages a print queue. But the main purpose of this app is to the data that comes from GGC needs to be delivered to a printer, right? So within the browser, that's not possible. That's why this companion app takes care of relaying the data to the actual printer, right? And you'll see that live in a few minutes. All right, for the live demonstration, we'll go through the three different options. Juan Carlos is going to show us how this looks in the inventory module. That's applicable also to in vitro or whatever material, viability tests, and then in distribution. And with that, I will hand over to Juan Carlos, and I'll actually do it by sharing a video feed from my phone.
In the live demonstration first, I will print one label for the inventory. In that case, you want to go to the inventory area, and here you have a list of the inventories. But by this example, you have to examine one inventory. Say here, one inventory, and these many different options. And you say, okay, I want to print this, the label for this special inventory. You click in print label. In this case, select the first one. And if you want, you can select many copies. Doesn't matter, select two, that case for test and say submit. Now, this, also Matia mentioned this, we have here the Level Printer app that allows to us to send information to the specific printer. As you can see here, we have three different kind of the printers. This one is the big one that we can use, especially what we suggest for the case collection or the long-term collection, because that's special, we say synthetic labels with allow to preserve into the -18 degrees. We have the other ones that is I suggest to this kind of the printer, by example for viability. There is a case, and the last one is not so common, but is a mobile printer. Now, in that case, we got to set the information or to print in the ZT. Select here, and here you can see. Now we have two copies of the same inventory. This is the way that the user can to print easily the labels. Or maybe the other option, special hit. Okay, you say, okay, I want to print in a but that something is not recommended for us, but something happened. You can select any of these. Go exactly to the same. Say print labels. Yeah, and we say collection. With this, we say submit, and I go to the same printer, and now, okay, that is something we use this desktop printer. Now, the idea is to use a tablet, by example. Using the tablet, I go to the scan here, to say to the inventory, by example. Okay, I'm going to select this one, select this, print labels. I'm going to check this. I want to use this one through the Bluetooth. Now we say submit, send, say I want to select this one. You see that? Right. Yeah. This is the one option that we have. And also let me to show you in the computer, by example. We say I want to here, I want to print, I want to take the emitter. I want to print 1, 2, 3. This case. Now, what is the idea of this example? I will print 3 labels in the same row. We say print label here. It's exactly the same. And I have to use this part. Then it's exactly the same procedure for all. Here, as you can see here, we have some printer that is, please, for this printer, or this is, I want to print 3 labels by row. Okay, select that. And as you can see here, in that case, it's 3 labels by row. This is regarding to the one example talking about the inventory. The next example that we want to show to you is the use of the, let me to use this one. The idea is to print the seed viability. Of course, we need to prepare the material to be tested and create the seed viability, and we have this option. In this moment, I will to use this. Here we have the generate labels. That depends, obviously, how many labels will be printed depends of the role that you have defined. We say, and we say, I think this one. Turn to the printer. The replicate 1, replicate 2 with some information, yeah, in order to testing start testing or take the information for the seed viability. And the last one I want to show to you is the option for distribution. Go to distribution, you need to create a distribution or the request with all the information. That information, you need to go the order items, exactly the same procedure. Select, and here you say labels. In this moment, oh, sorry, I forgot to assign the friendly name. Anyway, sorry. And I will say this one. And this is for the string. And with this size that the presentation, the presentation that we need to do. Here, by example, we need to test the viability now using this. Okay, see viability. Let's say,
You have a scanner.
Yeah. So the idea here, by example, not to start the viability, say record the observation. Right here. Now, the system allowed to me reading the barcode, start adding the observation for this test. No, so quickly information for a normal. That's all. No, and so do you want to
Do the next one?
to click the next one? Okay, so we test recording observation and circles. Sorry. And okay, yeah, that is you can put something here, say define, save, test.
This is the page of GGC that deals with the documentation about that was in the presentation. So the section on barcoding and labeling goes over the concepts, the designs, a few things. There are many presentations that exist in on this topic. I know Edwin has given a number of presentations just purely on picking the right labeling materials. He also explains different printing technologies. So those resources exist, but again, most gene banks do print labels already. It's not this is not new. The question is really, how does this work with GGC? So Juan Carlos, can you show some of the navigation and printing dialogues then?
It's only one comment here in the documentation. They have a step by step to add in the template to the GC. The documentation side is available here. Yeah, it is something to do. If we say here, regarding to your question, Santos, is something to say. Okay, yes, we have here. We say inventory, doesn't matter if it's here or here. And we say print. And here, your question is this. Yes, if we put here the number of copies, it's number of copies of the same inventory. Yeah, this is okay. In that case, this inventory or this label will be printed exactly with the same information 2 times. This is the option. This is okay. This is submit, and again, that is the problem. No? But I think maybe your question is yes, it's exactly the same ID or the same barcode, yeah, for the same inventory. I don't know if this answers your question, Santos.
It is very common to actually print multiple copies and of the labels, and commonly one label goes inside the jar, for example, and one on the outside. And if you print 3, you can stick one label on the lid of the jar as well. So how many you print really depends on how your how you're labeling. There's no limit on how many rows can be printed. It really depends on the labeling, on the material, the supplies you have, right? Because you will get labels. Let me just pick one row here. When you get your printing supply, so when you get the roll of labels, the roll itself already has either 2 or 3 columns or 4, depends on what you're buying. I know for those field tie labels, they usually are 3 or 4 in a row. The tie labels for the field, I think it's 4, but there's no practical limit on how many columns you can print. James says it has labels that come with 4 labels in a row, but each one's a different inventory. Well, I mean, that's not a problem. So the printing, so if you say I want to print 2 inventories, or let's say that I want to print 8 inventories and you have 4 columns, they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you then say I want to have 4 copies of each label, it then depends whether you collate them or not, right? Because you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But if you collate them, or if you don't collate them, you get the 4 copies of 1, 4 copies of 2, 4 copies of 3, and so on, right?
Okay.
Anil, I think you were talking, so please, can you go ahead and make your question kindly?
Yes,
without
Anna.
interruptions.
Yes, Matija, my question is, in ICRISAT Genebank, we are using different sizes of labels for LTS. Just for example, 60 mm by 90 mm, 70 mm by 90 mm, depending on the crop. So while selecting the template, can I select only inventory LTS collection, or each size label having different template I need to create?
You cut off a bit in the end, but from what I understand, you are using different sizes of labels for different crops.
Yes.
Already there, that means you have to have different templates for the different sizes. So each label size, if you want, requires a separate template. And usually one printer just has that one stock of label installed because you don't want to be taking the rolls in and out every 5 minutes. So usually you have a printer preset, and you say, okay, this printer is printing these labels, and that printer is printing those labels. So when you're printing, you can select just one template here on this screen, that you're using different sizes for labels for different crops that are all, let's say, in LTS. That's a bit, I've not experienced that, but I guess it happens. So in your case, I guess you'd have to do the filtering by crop and then print separately. Then again, printing should happen when you need the labels. It shouldn't be like I have a 10,000 inventories of sorghum and print 10,000 labels. That does not really help because the risk of error is too big.
Okay,
Maybe,
okay. Understand.
sorry. Okay, sorry, more question in that case. The system allows to you to say, to identify the printers and a friendly name. No, you got to say, this design is for the maize. This design is for the crop. I don't know, Sonanum. This is the friendly name that you can assign up for each design for easy use for the user.
Any other question, comments, worries that is applied to your David, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mattia, for your comments. Very interesting. What I wondered about, as you say, it should be printed at the same time that you are working on the material. Have you considered using a save and print button? Because now you save, you go to the details, you select the detail, and then you print. Why the 3-4 steps?
We have something like that when you do acquisition. Their printing is kind of part of the of those steps. So when you're acquiring on the acquisition screen, that pattern is being used. Most of the time, the creation of new inventories, when that happens, if you are splitting inventory, you will definitely can you go to split inventory, Juan Carlos? In split inventory, you can scan one barcode there. In split inventory, basically you pick, so you have, let's say, one bulk bag of stuff on something, right? In split inventory, what we do is give you an option. Just waiting for Juan Carlos to open something. So if you say, I want to split into 3, I want 3 new packets, right? So 3. In this tool, the label template is mandatory, right? So this is enforcing the save and print.
Great. Yeah, no, I just wondered.
No, I mean, it's really, I
you-
understand what you're saying. It's part of the process, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, this is definitely part of the process.
And having the print label is just as easy for if something went wrong. So you need both sometimes, but
Yeah.
Thank you.
Matish, I think we have the time to answer here Kame's query. If you can show, Kames, you can unmute yourself, or we can say, can you show again the process of the labels in a row for each inventory?
Show the process of labels in a row for each inventory. Juan Carlos, can you open the printer app?
Thank you.
I can only see the Chrome.
Okay, let me to stop share.
Right, so the configuration of the columns is part of the printer setup, if you want, right? For that printer, you say, okay, in this printer, I have the row of labels that has 2 or 3, that come in 2 or 3 or 4 columns, right? And Juan Carlos is now in the
screen?
app looking at the printer, and please go ahead.
In that case, James, you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, in that case, you need to decide only one. Let's say they design your label, and the app printer you need to define the number of the labels by row, and it's important, the width of each label, yeah,
Yes.
and the gap, yeah, because it's the way
Yes.
that allows to you to print many labels in the same row. You need to configure this in the label printer app.
Okay, perfecto.
Okay.
Yes. In the CPL is normal, the normal command.
Yes. It's
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
the CPL is like you have one column.
Okay. For example,
One label.
I select in the module inventory several inventory, and I can printer. I can select the team place, and after printer, and the program, the printer label is printer in row. Yes. Okay.
That case, yes, James, as you say, you select here 3. One,
Okay.
3, or more, doesn't
3.
matter. If you have more, doesn't matter, it's okay, no problem. Yeah, you say here,
Okay.
print level.
Print.
In that case, I know that is for me because I know this is for 3. Yeah. Maybe you have to a friendly name say this is the design for 3 labels. No, I see something here, and in this moment, yeah, I send to the print. The printer will print the 3 labels by row. Yeah, it's 3 different. In that case, 3 different inventories in the same row. In the same row. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I try to test.
Okay.
Probably. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the people that are starting to adopt or are trying to adopt, particularly from ILRI, from ICARDA, IITA? Or anything that needs to be said again?
Anna, no, I have no question. Thank you very much. It's a good presentation. Thank you, Mattia and Juan Carlos. Yeah, so we are actually, we are normally using the GG old print wizard. So more or less it's the same. So when we really implement the GGCE for our production, we will adapt that. So it's not a problem for us. Thank you.
David.
Yeah, just maybe a request for comments. You mentioned the app that needs to be installed to communicate the GGCE print command data to the actual printer. We've been using a Python server for it that we install locally. It's a bit of a hassle, but we did that because there were quite a lot of conflicts with the security that is applied internally. Mattia, have you got any comments or experiences with restrictive environments where this app, how hard it was to set it free, or did people always just allow it? Is it transparent? Is it open source? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obvious. So the reason for this is when you are on mobiles, and if you're out in the field with no connection, the only connection to the printer is Bluetooth. There's nothing that will help you print, when you're out there. So the app actually helps a lot in getting solving that problem. It requires basically no permissions. It is documented. It is open source. It is part of the GGCE software thing. So it is developed by the same crowd of people that do GGCE. You can find probably more on that in the GGCE documentation site. What you do, I mean, when you say we print to directly from a Python server or whatever it is, we have considered that option for printing, but in that case, it requires that you on the server, so let's say within GGC, configure all your printers and that they're accessible through network. Now that works for most cases. I know in your case you mostly have these desktop-sized label printers that are connected either wired or wirelessly to the network. So that would work, but it doesn't work the moment the server is not on the same network, right? So depending on the IT layout, if your server is in some DMS somewhere, there's no way the server could speak to anything because it can't reach that network segment. So there are trade-offs for both, and there's benefits for both. In this case, we had so far we've not had complaints or trouble with this printer app.
Sure.
Except perhaps that it doesn't run on iOS.
Yeah. Yes. No, it's very it's interesting because this interface is delicate, and yeah, we needed to. I'm not so happy with the Python server, but it works. So you know what they say, if things work. Good. Thank you.
Sure.
Adeyemi, do you want to ask directly the question to Matija and Juan? Just unmute yourself.
I see the text, the message from. There you are.
Oh, thank you, Mattia. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah. You can see my question. I want the label to take care of all this stuff, those are our stuff, the line number, the virus status, and maybe BD and so on and so forth. I don't know if you have said something about that before I joined.
Thanks, but we did not discuss that specifically. Juan Carlos, can you open the in vitro section? It's just the list of in vitro inventories. Yes, Abigail, just to say, when you have the different lines and line numbers for your in vitro material, those things can all be printed on these labels. The virus status is also part of the database. So if you scroll to the maybe this one does not have the status defined, but it is possible to then say this thing is virus free or free of virus, or this thing is infected, and include that in the label. So it really it does support the things that you are currently using at IITA. I mean, that's where I learned how to do barcoding. So
Thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If there is not, and if Matija and Juan don't have anything to add, I don't have also anything to add. I'm very thankful really for the presentation. I think it was a very good demonstration for all the centers that are here. Thank you very much.